I want to make sure that I can stream because Monday stream was interrupted 3 times. And I don't want to do another show where that happens. So I figured I'd start early and just uh, kind of just hang out. I'm really just gonna kind of try and just spend some time to see if the stream breaks. So there you go. But you should be able to hear me. And at 11 o'clock, I'm going to pretend like the show started. But this is giving me an 8-minute front. There's not going to be a Rockfin show right now because I'm just trying to see if this works. And yeah. Happy solstice. Right back at you, Dylan. Yeah, it's a beautiful solstice. I just gave 2 crows 3 peanuts. That was pretty cool to watch them pretend that. Anyway, crows are kind of picky. They'll be your friend, but they can't be your friend in public. It's kind of weird. Early is nice. Yes, it is. It's actually been could have been streaming 15 minutes ago, but hey Kay. Hello, Lisa. Looks good, sounds good. I like that spelling. Happy solstice and God mooring to you, James, and everyone here. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Occult friendship. Yeah, there you go, Christopher. There you go. Hi, Clara. Yeah, it's an occulted friendship. You know, most of the relationships you have will go through an occulting phase where someone doesn't like you, but you don't know it. And when I say someone doesn't like you, that's kind of like a broad term. Like someone is displeased or is offended by you, but they don't tell you that. You can you can, yeah, it is the shortest day. Good to see you, Debbie. Good morning. But you'll go for months and someone's offended by something that you've done, but you don't know that. That's an occulted friendship, right? It's below the ecliptic. You know it's there. It's still affecting you, but you cannot see it, right? And this, I think we need to embrace this more. We live in a world where we have this fetish to pretend that we're anti-dark, which makes us really dark, like really dark. It's kind of funny how it works, but that's truly it. Isn't it interesting that you can? I'm well, this may not be interesting to you, but to me it's interesting because I'm called Lucifer, so literally someone who's guilty of bringing light, and I'm called dark. I'm called, he's super dark Luciferian. Do, do you see how twisted that is? Those are two exactly the opposite things that you're being pinched from different angles. This is why no one wants to embrace the Aquarian path. Not no one, but that's why not a lot of people are really ready for that. It turns you like a corkscrew if you think about it. You're really dark, and you're a Luciferian. You're a dark Luciferian, and this makes sense. Don't question that, right? Just be this thing. That's an occulted friendship. You can spend your life being hurt by those people or offended by those people. You can use it to build your own community, to build your own fire, and say, we are the ones that truly like each other all the time, and all we have for each other is all these things. But you'll never ever outrun the path. It will always occult you. So why not embrace it? Why not dip into those waters and embrace the occlusion? Yeah. Are we still online? I'm sorry I have to ask, but this is why I wanted to check, because it doesn't show anything anymore. Which is, again, if you're just joining us, this, okay, good, cool. Hey, Bonjour, Moth and Shiva. Yeah, if you're just joining, I purposely started earlier because I wanted to do a test stream because we lost connection Monday 3 times in a row, and that happened in an unopportune time because I really had something profound to say, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was very profound what I had to say in relation to sovereignty and symbiosis. That symbiosis, that one can be sovereign and symbiotic at the same time. In fact, one could not be sovereign without being symbiotic because your sovereignty would not have an effect on the world if you were not symbiotic. That if you were not to cast a shadow to a cult, if you were not to cast a shadow, you would not be affecting the world at all, which means you would have zero sovereignty at all. So the ones that you occult, the ones that are put into your shadow, is a pure natural reaction to you being an obelisk. And that the Egyptians would tell every person, every soul was told, do you realize that Ra loves you? How do you know Ra loves you? Because he finds you formidable. How do you know Ra finds you formidable? Look down at the ground and see your shadow. You are so powerful that not even Ra himself can penetrate you. The land of the black, right? Egypt, Kemet, it's the land of the shadow. It's the land of occultation, which means when your friends occult you, and when you occult your friends, a very important process is happening. They are going into the world of Hades. And your friendship will either be resurrected or it will end. And that all will depend upon the Osiris that rides that journey, the Osiris that you have no conscious touch anymore because you've been occulted. You realize that they take your dead body and they bury it with them in their occultation, and they decide, they measure and weigh your heart against that of a feather to determine if you are worthy to be reborn and their acceptance of you. Why would you complain about this process? Why would we say the world must be broken because our friends occult us sometimes, or our government occults us? These are the ways that we lose or gain electricity. And it's all in our shadows. I used to live in a van a long time ago before it was cool. And it was an air-cooled 71 Volkswagen pop top. And I didn't have fanciness, so I decorated that van with black electrical tape. And I wrote "See the shadows" all over that van. I probably looked like a crazy person. But when I was 24, when I was 25, I was doing my best to embrace the shadows that were all around me. The things that they revealed were so much more profound. And we see that not just in our government, but really in each other. You look at the shadow of white Southern shame, that the very first organizations that were here long before government were Civitan, rural Civitan clubs. Some of them were called clans. Some of them had clever names, and these clans were smatterings of community, autonomous tribal people. And that the shadow, the occultation of that culture occults that clan and paints it as the source of all the evil. And it creates this magnet, this lodestone, just like Jesus is a lodestone. Just like Jesus is the lodestone. Government creates these lodestones to place all your blame and make you feel perfect. It's salvation technology, and it's beautiful. I'm not here to dispute it at all, but it's real, and It's how all of it works. And we're watching that. You're watching that in your own personal life. The shadows you cast make you formidable in the eyes of Ra. What is the shadow that's been cast since 2020 or 2019 or 2018? What is the shadow that's been cast upon the world? And how evil is that shadow? Because when you first look at it, it's enough to terrify you. I had raccoon eyes when I was speaking to Richie about the whole Passover thing that we were launching on the very night of Passover, a bunch of satellites that were ranging across the sky, the Starlink. And a giant eugenics program, unbeknownst to all of us, including me. All I saw was that there were two white ships, one in LA and one in New York, called the Comfort and the Mercy. And they were white ships with red crosses on them. They were Templar ships. And it dilated the piss out of me because I realized, holy shit, they're showing us that something big is about to happen. And I didn't know what. And I felt that these rituals happen instantly. And so I lost faith that what I saw was even possible because it wasn't happening right away. And lo and behold, something huge happened. The largest conscious eugenics program we've ever seen unfolded before our very eyes, was unrolled throughout the city like an ice cream truck driving at 7 miles an hour. And the Pied Piper inside was giving away free candy from a van with a blank insert. That cast a shadow across the land. And it showed you everything. Things that you were not ready to see about people around you, their own perspective. It wasn't just about government. Stop thinking about government. Start thinking about those in your life. It showed the people that you were sometimes the most closest to, the most loyal to, the ones you trusted the most. It showed you something that had always been there, but you lacked the discernment to see. And you needed an inoculation so big, so profound, that you had no choice but to recognize it. That's what happened. In 2017, let me pull this up because I got this statistic for you. Yeah, statistics, I know. But in 2017, the Constitutional Convention ran a poll, and 4 out of every 10 people couldn't name a single right guaranteed by the Constitution. Not one. Not even freedom of speech. And the same people ran that same poll in 2020. This year. And 7 out of every 10 people could name a civil right. And it's not just that. Americans are much more aware of all 5 rights protected by the First Amendment when asked impromptu to name them. Nearly 3/4 of Americans correctly name freedom of speech as one of the rights guaranteed by the First Amendment, which is double that from 2017. More than half of those surveyed accurately named all 3 branches of the government, when just in 2017, 40% of those people couldn't name one. Same questions, same poll. What's different? dilation. Every single thing that's happened around you affected every single person around you, even the ones that you think aren't awake yet. And I know that we're supposed to say this eugenics program is horrible and this is the evil and we're the good people, we're the victims, and this eugenics program is the evil thing because we're the good guys. But we treat each other like shit all the time, every day, hands down, nonstop, every second. And I'm not even here to guilt you for it. I'm here to tell you that we lie the fuck to ourselves and our society about everything that's happening around us, including what we think about even our friends, including about what we even see with each other. And if it wasn't for this eugenics program, you and I would not even see or know each other right now. Your world would be very different. Now, many will argue that the world was better then. And those same people will scream and say how horrible us coming up with our own currency is. And what a terrible, terrible idea it is to consider any idea that's outside of some objective morality that comes from some God that none of us will ever actually discuss or talk about. We'll just insist that we're here to obey him. And when you start to realize that the God and the state and the media have been converging and have been the same this entire time, you realize what happened to you. That you stepped through a portal and things are different now. You see it all and you can't help it. This is the shadows. And the whole time you've been assuming and insisting that the shadows are bad and we have to ignore the shadows. And if I ignore that person's shadows and they ignore my shadows, and neither of us have to see any shadows and we won't have to know what's happening. And that shit's impossible. And it's impossible because your parents tried that and your great-parents tried that and your great-great-parents tried that. And all they did was kill each other. And all they did is run out the house every time the fucking ice cream truck comes by and offers them free fucking candy. You can be as mad at the government as you want. I'm not even trying to stop you. But you're mad at the very product of the very people that you've been occulting your entire life, giving them a free pass because they make you feel warm and good at night. Or they ridicule the right people, so they make you feel better because you know that you aren't anywhere close to that border of that which will be ridiculed, so you will then blend in with them and say, you are my brethren, and you're not. And they're not. And you saw that starting in 2017. As everybody clings to their politeness. James, you shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't complain. You shouldn't say anything. Or James shouldn't be on YouTube because he's not agreeing with our victimology. You see the shadows and you get to make a choice. Which direction are you going to go? It's mitosis. It's the rapture. It's everything that any revelation has ever told you would happen happened in a span of 2 to 3 years. And it's a different world now. And I'm not saying it's not over. I'm saying that the obviousness is over. Why? Because everyone has normalized this. And the people that went back into the cave to stare at the shadows on the wall have already forgotten. They've already moved on. And it will become necessary for another 7-mile-per-hour ice cream truck to come rolling through the streets. I get why this is light and dark at the same time, but this is the gift of Baal. This is the dirtiest job in the world. And we will lie to ourselves instead of do it, because that's part of the slavery. Looks like the stream's still working. We've been 20 minutes now, so that's good. Sorry for not going to Rockfin today. I didn't know if the stream would even work. I wanted to just do a test. I spoke about sovereignty and symbiosis. People don't understand that those two things are required for each other. The shadow of sovereignty is symbiosis. And the fact that you were bothered by the occultation of your friends or whatever else, however else you see those shadows, the fact that you were bothered by it is not a sign that you are broken. It's a sign that you are plugged into the world. It's a sign that you are conscious. What happens when you're unconscious? Nature takes her course and provides you, your vessel, with directions. Those directions are going to lead the world in the best way possible from an autopilot's perspective. And when you watch unconscious people, they're going to follow the fashion of nature because nature is the one that has the root access to that signal. It's autopilot. If you rent a jet ski and you fall off a jet ski, it turns in a circle. Why? That's built in from the factory. And when you are not conscious, your inclinations follow the factory, which is nature. And nature knows how to install vitriol slowly. It doesn't know how to accommodate you. It doesn't know how to acclimate to your definition of justice. It's not going to play pickup sticks with you in a desperate attempt to make sure that you understand what's happening to you before it happens. It doesn't need to. Your neocortex is not something that's involved in everything you do. Most of the decisions that happen from your body are none of your neocortex's business. And so you have this operating system that's built in. You are symbiotic, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. In fact, it's good because it means you're connected. You're a part of the network. And being part of the network means having this kind of symbiotic relationship. Your sovereignty is going to come in what software do you write for yourself. If you don't write code, your processor will be used by nature to do something else. And one of those things it will do will be to slowly stimulate vitriol throughout the rest of the cathedral of other entities out there that have the potential to be conscious, because we are not born conscious. We are born with the potential to become conscious. And in order to become conscious, one needs to accept the shadows and understand they're a vital part of the light. It's not even symbolic or esoteric. It's literally something that happens every day, all the time, in every decision that you make, even what you eat. See the shadows. Stop denying they're there. It's a different world. We're at 23 minutes and all systems are operational. Yeah, man is not separate from nature. That's an arrogant fetish. Man would be nothing without nature. And nature would be nothing without lies. If you think that there's no lies in nature, you're not seeing the shadows. You're really not seeing the shadows. So, how do you do that? You find things that are painful in your life. You find things that happen, you find transgresses, you find trespasses, you find all the vitriol you can in your life, and you collect it like berries, and you put it in a basket, and you harvest it for its gifts of Baal. That's what you do now when you watch what happened over the last 3 years. We look at what's happened. People have been dilated. The ice cream truck giveth, the ice cream truck taketh away. And all of us tried. all of us insisted. And it worked. We enriched the soil around us. And that soil is going to go back, it's already gone back to doing what it was doing before. And that's okay too. But it shows you the deeper part of how this nature works. It will always work through vitriol. It will always work through vitriol. That's the shadow. And that's what it feels like to grow. You're not going to grow if you're not feeling that. And it doesn't even have to sting. It's there to dilate you. It's like snake venom, which is really the source of all medicine. From the very beginning, every medicine has come from the snake. Every single thing that caused you to grow came from the snake. Right? The serpent, the sperm, the serpent literally enters the garden, rubs up against the tree, leaves cherubim as guarding the egg, telling every other sperm, I got this. This is my conquest. What does the serpent do? The sperm, it penetrates to the membrane and it inserts its apple. It releases its genes into the center. And from that moment on, that poison from the snake causes the zygote, the Elohim, the single entity, to split, to cleave itself. And the 1 becomes 2, the 2 becomes 4, the 4 becomes 8, the 8 becomes 16. The very essence of life comes from the venom of a snake. The whole thing. And when you look at that cleaving, the very first cleaving, after the 16 are formed and the zygote has enough structure, after its titans form the outer wall around its egg, it does something. For the very first time, it genders itself. It engenders itself into a polarity. The first polarity, the first gender is outside or inside. The very first thing that forms is a cell is acclimated to know I am a cell that's on the inside of the zygote and I am a cell that's on the outside of the zygote. And for the very first time, the Elohim, the collection of those cells, the conglomerated brain, the essence of who you are, is told to make a choice, to be male or female. It's the very first thing that happens to the Elohim. And so it does. And from the moment it makes that choice, it's given life, but at the same time, it's lost a part of itself. It's cleaved itself. It's such a profound thing that happened on a biological level. It's encoded in all our mythology. It's encoded in all our stories. It's encoded right now in the way everyone's freaking out about gender identity. And when people are disassociating and dissociating into different, not genders, but typologies of genders now. Where the gender paradigm going from 2, or you would argue 3 biologically now, wants to be turned into 38 or 64. And that's the exact same process that happened to the Elohim when we first chose our gender. All life knows how to do is to grow from a split. What is the split? It's that vitriol. It's the shadow. That's the eye of Horus, that's your placenta, that's all of these things. Even right now, the winter solstice, happy winter solstice, is carved into the essence of you from that very first cleave. The 16 cells that formed around your Elohim, that formed the first pocket, that is the zodiac built into your oldest cell, the oldest cell you have in your body, which is inside your pineal. Those are your oldest cells. Has encoded and carved into its matrix the zodiac itself. The entire clock and spin of this whole thing is based on the cleaving of you. It's fascinating. And only now are we able to really tap into what this feels like. That from 16 cells, we've turned into 40 trillion, and most of those cells have died and been reborn. And that a process happens inside our body right now that you could put on your scuba gear and dive into your body right now, and you would watch this process. This little ice cream truck is floating around inside your cells, and it sees your cells and says, "Hey, do you want to die?" And the cell's like, apoptosis, I think this sounds like a good idea. Yeah, help me out of here. And that entire process is you. The entire process is life itself. We have to learn to see the shadows. We don't have to. See what happens if you don't. It doesn't matter. I'm not in a position anymore where I need you to see them. I used to be really invested in making sure that people saw what I saw, and that's an emotional kind of pedophilia. To release your expectations from what you expect from others because you can see the shadows now. It puts a whole new definition on how you define even who your friends are. Your friend now is not someone you have to trust anymore. You don't even need to trust them because your posture is something different now than it was 3 years ago. It's much more natural. It's much more how it was meant to be, really. This is how it was always meant to be. Fondle your inner child into reality. Sophie's Choice. Yeah, that's an interesting metaphor for that. We got Airship tonight. My house seems to be back in order, and so yeah, if you want to come to Airship tonight, it's at 7 p.m., 7 to 8:30. Yeah, I think we're good. I think the test is good, unless you guys have some topic. Sorry, no Rockfin just today. Sorry, I really didn't know if the internet was even going to work, and I just wanted to do a test because it got broken 3 times on Monday, and I don't like it when I have content to deliver and it gets broken like that. So this was sort of a test stream. I am much more polite and detached from my friends now. Yeah, I can't say I'm more polite, but I'm detached from them now. I'm trying not to be so drained when someone is unhappy, but they're not telling me why. I find that incorrigible. And that's an expectation I'm having trouble letting go of. But it's also encouraging me just to be a little bit more assertive with what I expect from people. And right now, with everyone either leveling up or leveling down, I don't even care. Again, it's not like I'm at the top. Fuck no. But there's sort of a volatility right now because people are changing. And when you change your vibration, the people around you are going to feel betrayed by you. They're going to feel betrayed by you because you're changing your vibration suddenly. It's no different. You'll see this with lizards. If you've got a bunch of lizards under a heat lamp, they're actually fine with each other. Why? Because they've regulated to each other. Every moment has been scan the environment, perceive threat. The closest threat they would see would be the other lizard. They're watching the lizard. The lizard doesn't do anything different. What happens now? The lizard relaxes. Why? Because the threat that he perceived did nothing. This is the pond's brain, your reptile. You're in a reptile. calming yourself, telling yourself, it's okay. It's okay, because if he would have eaten you, he would have eaten your last frame, is what it tells yourself. And so you release a little bit, the cortisol stops a little bit. So the longer the lizard stands right next to you, the less cortisol you feel in his presence. And it's always this simple. It's always built on itself, which means if you walk into a room and you now have a different posture, or you now see the shadows in something, you are instantly going to be rebuked for that simply because you are doing something different. You're doing something different, and all the reptile brains around you, and you're a reptile brain too. This doesn't exclude you. You want that reptile brain, but all the other reptile brains around you are going to sense that, and they're going to freak the fuck out. And you'll watch that. If one lizard moves too soon or suddenly falls, all the other lizards freak the fuck out because it wasn't expected. He did something unexpected, which means that he was violated. All the cortisol now comes back, and it's 11 times stronger. 11. It's 11 times stronger because we had built a rapport, says the reptile. I trusted you. I trusted you, and now you come here into my home and you raise the cortisol by falling off the heat rock, and I'll never trust you again, Roger Reptile. And all Roger does is doesn't move, and Lenny the lizard starts trusting Roger again because the last frame, Lenny didn't do anything. And the frame before it, he didn't do anything. And the frame before it, he didn't do anything. That's your operating system. Most of you works that way. Don't say, I'm above that. No, you don't even want to be above that. You don't even want to be above that. Your reptile's going to see things you can never imagine. Never imagine. Why? Because your reptile doesn't have all these emotions to cloud the rendering engine of the cave. And when I say cloud, your emotions are going to show you things that your reptile can never see, and you're going to want that for sure. But your reptile, your intuition, is always going to see the movement. Even when your emotions tell you this is too painful to see. I can't imagine that someone would... I can't imagine they would do this 72 times. Surely 71 times is enough, and now they'll stop, and they don't stop. Because everyone around them is comfortable with them doing the same. It becomes its own glass ceiling. It's a reptile ceiling. Now let's go back to the idea of you not being conscious, or of someone not being conscious. What's happening? Their reptile is running. And their reptile is going to naturally do that over and over again. So it's going to trust the ones that are not awake. And if you dare to wake up in front of them, the other reptiles are going to be angry at you. These are people that do not trust their intuition. They tell you it's the reptilians from Zeta Reticuli. They tell you anything except for it's them. And it's their shadows. And this gives us all the information we need. It's profound. And all you got to do is relax. All you got to do is relax, and you can see it all. You see every bit of it by relaxing. Reptile brain is the lower brain. Yeah, reptile brain is your inner brain. I'm not trying to say you can't call it lower, but it's your inner brain. And people who fear their intuition, what they fear is that the reptile has a different appetite than they do. That's what they fear. People who say I can't, or they can't trust their intuition, they'll go to someone else and they'll say, can you please trust my intuition? So that's not seeing the shadows, is it? You understand your reptile's appetite, you know when to trust it, you know when not to trust it. This stream seems to be working great. Yeah, lower doesn't mean lower. It remains in the back of the head. So it's like your pons is the fist, right? And then your lobes, the first division, the lobes, the left and right, are built on top of that. And then once your lobes separate, then some people will call that the primate brain. And I don't care. It doesn't really make sense to say evolution is true or false. It just makes sense to say, hey, wow, it looks like there's a genetic code that can be spliced in different segments. And if you splice the same information but at different segments, right, like 23 pair or 12 pair or 8 pair or 18 pair, that depending on how you split those genes, you get a different sequence that has the same sort of spinal, right? A vertebrae would be something that has a certain amount of code that's built onto it or taken away from it, right? All vertebraes are an open source Git library that says download spine, insert warm-blooded biology, insert nervous system along interior tract of spine, insert fluid inside spine. Now you have a suspended sonar buoy inside of a spine. That's code, right? That's a standard code. It's, you can go and download, okay, I just need a browser, right? And so your browser would be the spine, the vertebrae system. And hey, maybe you don't want a vertebrae. Maybe you're all like, ooh, I'm going to write my own code. So you go invertebrate. Man, go for it. You start putting pigments in the skin. You start downloading chameleon code to install it onto your water creature. And that water creature is an octopus, but now the octopus can change colors. And you're like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. Let me give it more intelligence. You give it download the GitHub library for the neural nets, right? You're like, okay, I need a neural net with agency and a temporal timeline. And the GitHub says, how much language buffer are you going to have? How much of a timeline are you going to allow your creature to have? And it's like, well, human, you can max that out at like 100 years, right? Well, yeah, I want the human to be able to remember things for 100 years. And the GitHub library says, yeah, this will require this much matrix code to hold that information. You're going to have to carry around this much salt. And so now the octopus invertebrate idea that you have is suddenly like, well, shit, I can't carry around that much salt. I want him to be flexible so he can fit into a jar. So I'm just going to give my squid or my octopus brain, I'm only going to give him 12 minutes. He's only going to have a memory of 12 minutes. So now you have a creature that can change colors, that has no vertebrae, but really has no identity. Doesn't really know himself outside of the 12-minute sphere. Doesn't have any kind of long-term memory, which means you can fool that octopus no matter how badass it is, no matter how color-changing it is, no matter how flexible it is. You can simply out-simulate that octopus because you have a longer memory core than 12 minutes. And so over the years, you can outrun. This is the same way that a human can outrun, by the way, right? The Achilles heel. The irony of the mythology of that when man developed the Achilles heel, he developed the ability to run, and through the sweat glands in his skin, he developed the ability to outmaneuver his prey. It's the same way in outthinking and out-memorizing an octopus. Your memory spans 100 years, which means if it took you 98 years to learn the secrets of the octopus, you have 2 years to have full advantage. Same thing with having an Achilles heel and sweat glands. You can run 26 miles and not die. And that antelope can't. That gazelle can't. Cannot survive that long. All they have is they can run back into the herd, right? And if they look enough like their herd, then the predator is not able to keep track of which one was running. Why? Because the predator does not have a 100-year-old matrix, memory matrix. It's too complex. It's a simpler kind of code. So we can't even say evolution is bullshit. If you want to know what's bullshit, I think it's the idea that this place was created instead of spawned. When you really start to look at how everything works, it becomes impossible to believe in any sort of creation at all, whether it be a creationist or whether it be an evolutionist Big Bang perspective. Both of them are implying that there was once nothing and then something was here. And that's a supposition that, you know where that supposition comes from? From the limitations of your 100-year-old brain. That your brain can only remember things for 100 years. Which is why you would need there to be a beginning and an ending, because you cannot even fathom just how big the landscape of time goes. We can't even fathom the shape of our Earth. More or less creation or how time goes, right? So start to consider the implications of being spawned. Really consider that. Because it throws away all the excuses that randomness gives you. This idea that evolutionarily, randomly, that you're a mismatched experiment, that you're an accident masturbating itself out of a tree that masturbated itself from a fish. If you're spawned, something's very different here. Your code was supposed to be here when you're spawned. And you can change your code. But you have to see the shadows. You have to. It's the only way to start compiling your own consciousness. It's the only way. And you're already compiling your reality anyway. So why could you not just compile a little bit more? Why not? That terrifies most reptiles. We call them hyenas on this channel, but it terrifies people for them to think that they could compile their own reality. They'll insist they're not moral enough. They'll insist they can't be trusted. And so what happens? You create a government to do it for you. All the archetypes are GitHub. Every icon you've ever seen, every mythology you've ever had is a GitHub suppository that you download into yourself and you run its code. It either helps you or it doesn't. It's going to depend on the quality of your matrix, right? How much electricity do you have to devote to the processor? Well, it looks like internet's pretty good. This is great. And, I'll throw some calories in the next show. Isn't the tongue an octopus too? Wow, that's cool, David. Happy solstice, Annie. Good to see you. I was not in the military even though I was born of it. I was denied by the military. Military, maybe not such a bad thing to be denied from, really. I was just watching this, I'm not even going to get into that, actually. It's okay. I've made enough trouble for a week. But yeah, happy solstice. The calendar is still going. Mayor, thank you so much for the calendar. I should have opened the gate today, but I had the candy for breakfast. I didn't know I was going to stream because I was working on the book. I'm recording my audiobooks right now since the internet and everything's been crazy. So if you're just joining me, we are having an airship tonight, so you can come to that if you want. It'd be great to see you. I've not made nearly enough trouble this week. Well, thank you. I will do better, Elspeth. Candy for breakfast. Yeah, it was bad. I've been on a weird, not having power, which wasn't that big of a deal, but when you don't have power for a day, then you lose internet for 4 days. You kind of turn into this different sort of thing. And then not having a sink during part of those days, I just sort of went primitive for a while. That's all. And I didn't mind it. It was good. It was a good upgrade. I still need to get a dishwasher intake, probably an S trap. I think so the S trap I had mangled because I had a spare one. Doesn't have a dishwasher intake, so I have to do that. But other than that, everything's working great. The sink is amazing. Oh my God, the sink is so great. It's great. It feels good to do stuff like that yourself, but also during the couple days it took me to fix all that, you just kind of lose your higher functions because you're back into primitive life. That's all. Yeah, it's good to go primitive. I found my life also built a sink. Oh, wow, look at that, Thomas. Yeah, the sink was supposed to be just a faucet. The faucet required the sink to be changed. The sink required the cabinet to be changed. The cabinet required the counter to be changed. The counter required... Not the counter, but the cabinet required that the floor underneath it all be done properly. So, yeah, it was just one of those, everything has to go. And that's good. Trans-Siberian Orchestra is coming to mind. Oh no, that's funny. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say it. I shouldn't have said that. Huge wind, rainstorm coming our way. Yeah, the I was told by by the cable guy that it was a micro event that struck my neighborhood. So whichever one of you plasma titties did that, nice try. You got the wrong house, but I got a free sync out of it, and so that was good. And I appreciate you not damaging my property as much as it could have. So that was good. And I accept those shadows. It's good. It's good. Turns out I had offended someone. What time is Airship? 7 p.m. Katua. That is Eastern time. Sorry for my broken English, but did you say you say sparrow in the, no, I probably did say sparrow, but no, tube. Now I'm gonna talk bad. This sounds bloody. Tube in dishwasher, the drain tube that the dishwasher drains into the sink underneath it. Yes, you can support me on Patreon. Thank you, Mared Moth. Yes, you can. You also guys can buy my new book. I have a brand new book out. It's called Ark of Baphomet, and the Zygote, all that mythology. Turns out mythology is an oracle, and all the history of all that is outlined really well in that book. It's also my first audiobook that I recorded, so you could download that on Audible right now too. Is the Airship somewhere other than the telly? It's not on Telegram. The Airship is a Zoom meeting that we host, and that Zoom meeting is then recorded if you miss it. So we meet twice a week and do it that way. Did you really rip off Crow? No, I didn't really rip off Crow. I didn't even rip off Crow. It wasn't actually Crow. Rose and I were planning a speaker series since August 24th. And in all that, we set up a speaker series. We were going to have a bunch of different speakers, and when Crow caught wind of what Rose and I were doing, Crow didn't like that. And then Crow had a meeting with me and wanted me to change a lot of stuff that didn't make sense for me to change. And then I thought everything was actually fine, but then Rose got really mad at the fact that Crow didn't. Rose got mad at me because she's not actually allowed to be mad at Crow. I mean, she could be mad at Crow, but it would be a lot more expensive. So, we've sold almost 100 tickets. I'm doing a live show on 5/5 in Rhode Island. I'm really excited about what I'm bringing you. Actually, if you could just imagine sort of the best of my live streams, but put on a stage with a little bit more emphasis on the dilation part of it, I think you'll really enjoy the show. And even the ideas of what were in the show, frankly, scared Crow. He said that. He scared Crow. That just caught that analogy, scared Crow. But that scared Crow. He was legitimately nervous and terrified at some of the ideas that I was going to bring to the show. And he wanted me to not bring those to the show. And he also wanted to not actually commit to being there on 5/5 and writing. He wasn't willing to do that. And so it just didn't make sense for me to try and produce something that I couldn't have control over what I say, nor could I have control over whether or not he showed up. And it got really dramatic because Rose started saying I was committing fraud. It was just a really bad thing. So, but if you want to read that, you can check out. There's more about this in 5/5, a thoughtful gathering 5/5 stream that I just outline it more, explain a little bit more about the dynamics of Rose and Crow and how there was a triangle there. And I think I have some guilt in that I was assuming that Rose spoke for Crow. Actually, I wasn't assuming. I kept asking Rose, when can we get a commitment from Crow? And she kept insisting that it was fine. But that was that old world of no one's going to commit. They're just going to they're just going to tell you, but they want the option not to. And I can't put that much energy into a live show. I'm telling you I'm going to be there, which means I'm going to be there. I've written it down. I've committed to it. I'm already nervous about it. I've already been preparing material for it. Crow not even committing to be there wouldn't actually be doing any prep for the show. He would just wake up on the 5th and say, should I go to this thing? Maybe I will. And I don't want to do a show with anyone who acts like that. So sorry if this feels too bad or too good or whatever else, but you know, that's what happened. And I've certainly suffered a lot from the Crow attacks. I know that I probably can never have a decent conversation with David Avocado Wolf anymore because of what Rose has done. I know that it caused Owen Benjamin and Benjamin Balderson to do an hour stream saying that I should be thrown off YouTube as a result. So I don't know what else you guys want me to say about it. You know, I'm happy to answer the questions, I guess, but I don't really know what else to tell you, man. Maybe, you know, maybe these questions are maybe better for Rose. You might find just a different, you know, a different perspective there that might give you more what you want. So yeah, there's that. I was hoping to hear of some, yeah, there is resolution to that, Tina. The resolution I think is going to be great, which is that I'm doing a show on 5/5 and we sold almost 100 tickets. In fact, if you guys, right now, it's actually a special price. I've sort of been laying off talking about it just because of the holidays, but we actually have a special price on those tickets right now. You could buy one of those right now. There's a maximum of 250 allowed in the venue, and yeah, it's an all-day thing. We have something special during the day that we're working on presenting. It's talking about so I don't want to speak for it, but it's related to the idea of unanimous consent and building a consent-based government going forward. I'm really excited about bringing that. Our own Noon Digest is sort of chairing that program, so I don't even want to narrow it down to say that that's what it is, but I'm really, really looking forward to showing you that. And then we'll have activities all day, but then at night I'll be doing my live show, and I've got some cool things. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's not, to me, it's not really the same as doing a live stream because I actually would be in front of you guys, which would be the first time I would actually have live audience feedback. The chat certainly helps, but a lot of times I can't watch the chat because it just kind of turns the show into a weird direction sometimes. But in this case, I'll be actually living off the feedback in the audience, and I've got some cool things that I couldn't do over a live stream because of that. So I'm looking forward to showing you that. Let's see. Yeah, it can't always be avoided sometimes. And it shouldn't be. I think that Rose is occulted. Remember, if you didn't see the beginning, I think it's an occulted friendship right now. I have that with people all the time. And we could say that means I'm flawed, or we could just say that it means that I'm an authentic person and someone else has an authentic idea of what's important to them too. And sometimes we just don't always get that. So I don't understand why folk did 5/5 when James asked about sound. I'm not sure what that means, but this, one of the things that's making the show so great is that I'm bringing my own equipment, so I won't have to want that. Owen wanted James booted. Yes, that's what the stream was about, and that's, I mean, it wasn't just about that. It was pretty much just let's insult a couple people. So I was just part of that, but yeah, and that's, you know, in a way, I've said that from the very beginning. I think it was a mistake to say that, but even when Owen started to get mad, I if you remember, I kept saying, no, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. I just gave the benefit of the doubt that this is just how it goes, because some people are kind of bitches the way they act. I didn't even mean that towards Owen. I kind of meant that more towards Rose. It was just a really fucked up, not a friendly way of treating her. That she could have just called me. Crow and I had a good conversation. We resolved it pretty well. It was an extra thing that Rose came in saying that I was defrauding or whatever. It's the exact same thing that Ben Balderson did, by the way. Exact same. When you try and hold someone to account, they're going to start calling you a fraud. It's not, and to account really was more about, look, I don't want to plan a huge festival. You know, I remind everyone that we sold a lot of tickets to do this event at Ben Balderson's property, a lot. I mean, it's like $11,000 worth. And all of a sudden, Ben was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think the whole event made him nervous because he realized that he was going to have to be accountable for things, and it just seemed like too much work. And as I said then, he has a new property. I'm sure it was just too much for him to swallow. And I thought everything resolved. I returned all of those tickets, all of that money. It took me like 2 weeks to do that, to like send everyone their money back, explaining them why, all that stuff. And all Ben was saying the whole time was that I was trying to defraud people. And I wasn't. I want to show you guys what happens when people gather and do things. And I don't have land to do that. So I look outside. I look for other help to do things like that. And that's what we're doing in Rhode Island. We found a piece of land that someone is letting us rent and lease. It has bathrooms. It has facilities. It's right on the water. It has a beautiful gathering room for us to talk. It has an outdoor amphitheater covered. It has a gazebo that's also right on the water. It has beautiful grounds, perfect parking. This isn't a camping thing. This is a 1 or 2 day event, but there's not camping at the facility. But our gates will be open from 3 p.m. until about midnight. And during that entire time, we've got a lot of different things that are planned for you. And everyone who's there has committed to being there. So that's what I needed. I needed commitments from people to actually be there so we could do something special. So I was following all three of you at that time. It's wild how they acted. I guess it was how it was supposed to be. Yeah, it is, Heath. And it's not even bad. Guys, if you really want to understand the depths of the pain that this caused Rose, you really actually have to look at Owen Benjamin. And you just have to understand that there's a lot of politics involved in being even on YouTube. There's still politics involved. And if you were not liked by the big bear, Crow finds that very nervous. He sees a source of audience and acceptance through that community. And he simply made a political decision. Which tie am I going to cut, James or Owen? This is about the 4th or 5th time this happened. It's not even the first. There's been, even Flattoberfest was that. There's been a lot of those kinds of things that have definitely happened as a result. And it's just politics. I don't say just, but this is how Hollywood is. This is how Hollywood runs too. It's the same kind of a thing. You're always going to find this, though, in every industry. It's not even necessarily specific to, say, one person or even one industry. It's just simply the way it goes. And honestly, I don't know if Owen could handle being around me if I was on stage. I just don't. It's clear that my work has intimidated him for a while. And I think it's actually quite natural that he would try and flex and do what he can to suppress or sequester my voice, even by having a stream last week with Ben Balderson expressing how important it was that I be removed from YouTube. This is a good sign, not bad. You understand? When you see the shadows, it means you get to look for the gifts of Baal in there. You get to understand that. Do you understand how bad it would have been if I would have just kept on assuming that Crow was going to be there and have him not show up? You know, Rose had asked me, James, I need you to sell the tickets. She asked me that. It wasn't a choice I made. It's just what we decided we needed to do, which means I was producing the event. It's another reason why I'm the one that signed the lease at Rhode Island, which is another reason why I ended up doing a show there. If I tell you this, if it was Crow, if Crow had the whatever you want to call it, to sign the contract for the place at 5-5, I wouldn't have done a festival there. I would have said, well, Crow, I can't do a show with you because if you can't commit in writing and you have a problem with all these other things, which I've already mentioned in that stream, I'll go do a show somewhere else. But I couldn't do a show somewhere else because I already had signed the lease there. I asked Crow if he wanted the lease, and he said no. And while he was saying no, Rose was telling everyone else that I was robbing them. That's my side. I totally understand that, you know, maybe you speak too much truth, James. Yeah, probably. But and that's just my side. I would assume that if you were to go and ask for it, you would get a very different version, and, you know, prune my lips, prune their lips, and see what's up. But I mean no ill will towards anyone. I still shocked that why Crow would automatically say, why Rose would say that there's no way Crow would ever come to my show when it's like 15 minutes away from his house. Crow didn't say that. When Crow and I left, Crow said, "You're going to still come back on the show, right? Because of your new book?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." But then after Rose did all this, I realized I can't really like even make another appointment with Rose, because I know that what she says and what Crow says are not the same. And that I was in that mistake by thinking that triangle was the solid. So I don't think I'll ever be invited to do a show with Crow, even though Crow invited me, but that's because of how hurt Rose is. Rose is my occulted friend right now, if that makes sense. That's all. And she could be back, she could not be back. It doesn't matter. I mean, it'd be great, but there's a long line of people that I've been. Owen's one of those, you know. It'd be great if he was all of a sudden called, go, "Dude, I was such a dick to you. Blah, 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 and here's why, blah, blah, blah." Like, I still think shit like that happens. And it's just a healthier perspective to think about things like that. It's just if you remove, this is why I talk about emotional pedophilia, because I really learned this hard with Rose. You can't expect someone to be at your level. I can't expect, if Crow is afraid to commit in writing to being an event, if he can't sign a contract on a lease, why am I in a relationship with him where I'm talking to his assistant, Rose, and assuming that everything she's saying is he's saying? Can you see how this is all my fault? This is all me. I was the one that was looking through that. And actually, I already learned thanks to Balderson, because the whole time I was telling Rose from August on, hey, we need a commitment, we need a commitment, we need a commitment. You got all the way up to the end of October. You got in November. And all I did was just pushing my foot down more, saying, if I don't get a commitment soon, this is going to be a really big problem. And I finally said, I can't go on anymore. If you can't commit to this, it's not going to work. So anyway, sorry, I'm talking way too much about this. That's what happened. It would be great if they came, but that's okay. Your spine has grown taller. Yes, it has. Thank you, Elspeth. It has really grown taller. There's been a lot of this going around. Your shows are still up on Crow, so I think your going fallow could bring you back someday. Yeah, that's great. No, I was wondering about that. That's a really good. I think that's probably the best sign of health. And you know what? If you go, yeah, I know Owen loves Kanye right now. I heard Obi say Kanye was consulting with him or something on the last Crow episode. Yeah, victim's gonna Vic. It's an archetypal wonder. Yeah, it's. This is what I mean by there's a portal. That's all. There's a portal. Oh, but in reference to what Noam said, I think that's very healthy. Yeah, the fact that my shows are still on there on Crow is probably the only indicator that I have. There's a shadow. You can literally see that. I can still see that. And if you go in my library, you will still find every interview I've ever done with Ben Balderson, every interview I've ever done with Owen Benjamin, every interview I've ever done with Snake Jones, every interview I've ever done with Beth Martins. All of the people that call me a Luciferian, a Satanist, an evil scallywag, or whatever the fuck it is, those interviews are still on my channel because I think that they're just occulted. You know who I would take off my channel? Is if I've like wronged someone. If I've really wronged them, I wouldn't be able to handle that, right? Unless I did a video where I showed you I wronged someone. And guess what? I've done that. I did that with Kaufman. I fessed up pretty early that I was mad at Kaufman about a girl. I didn't like the way he was treating a girl. I gave all my excuses, and I told you I really liked the girl and that it was clouding my judgment. Remember all that? Does anybody remember that? Because the Luciferian dark man is the dude that's telling you these things. I'm the one who's explaining to you what I saw in the dynamic that was happening with Rose. It was a triangle. And I'm the one who's explaining to you how it was my fault because the entire time I had these expectations. Emotional pedophilia was being committed by me. So I think I'm the only guy that has actually told you, prune my lips, and that you shouldn't believe everything I said. In fact, I even said, I'm going to lie every episode. Some of you guys have been like, oh, he must get up and plot and go, what am I going to lie about today? And it's like, I don't even know. I don't think you know when you're lying. Not all the time. I don't think I know when I'm lying all the time. I find out later. I find out the second it leaves my lips. Oh my God, that's a lie. How do I learn these things? How? You think it's because I have some divine seed inside me that insists that I find the nobility? No. No. I find this because I have enough electricity to afford to find it. That's all. And I've had a lot of practice calling myself a liar. I've had a lot of practice calling myself out on it. I've had a lot of practice learning why I lie, why other people lie. I've written books about why people lie. Because I think it's how we understand each other. It's how we see the shadows. And most of my enemies will insist that they never lie. Most of my enemies will insist that they are moral creatures. And I've never insisted I'm a moral creature. I've told you that the morality that I generate is directly proportional to the amount of electricity I have at the time. And that your morality will be directly related to the amount of fuel you have in your tank. And that's why I ridicule the person that uses labels like evil or psychopath or narcissist. That I make that expensive for you to do that. Because I think we have to see the shadows. We have to understand ourselves. And lying is an umbrella. It's an umbrella we hold up in the bright sun because our shoulders are too faint for that much truth. And so we lie. Yeah, thank you. Wearing clothing is a kind of lie. Exactly. Exactly. So why pretend that we don't lie? Does it make you less of a liar? In a way, it feels like it. Same thing with the world. If you bitch about the world, you must not be contributing to it. It's that ice cream truck. Who does it take? It doesn't take them. There are no them. It takes us, and it will always take us because we didn't have enough electricity. Let's see. How do you only sneeze one time? It's because I made a pact with the devil. Hey, you guys know that that the solstice is marked by two goats, right? There's the solstice comes in on two goats. Look it up. It's actually on my phone, but I think I'll actually end up resetting the internet if I try and show it to you. Thank you for making this a longer stream and not a short. Well, thank you, Shiva. Sometimes I'm always worried that I'm boring you guys, so I'm always like, don't bother them, James. They have things to do. I think I'm the only live streamer that's like, gosh, everyone has a lot to do. Should I really bother people with a stream? It's like the stupidest, most retarded live entertainer you could ever imagine because I'm literally like trying to compassionate the shit out of you. And it's hard. I'm a Capricorn. Jesus was a Capricorn. Yeah, there you go. There's some goat too. But yeah, there's something about goats. I saw this morning. It was pretty cool. A demon sneeze. Yeah, it could be. I've really been trying to see more demonology and how people are haunted. I know I've been saying this, but I haven't. I'm still trying to develop the language to explain it. But like, so there's one person. She's actually in the chat, and I'm going to try and not say her name because I just really appreciate her. But we did like an interview for the Vitriol Orchestra, which is helping us with the 5-5 event. And when the camera's on, she was like in perfect posture, consciousness, behavior, all of it. And then as soon as the camera went off, something else came out. And her energy completely changed. And it changed in a very sabotaging way. And so the very same person physically was in the room, but a very different entity, a very different vector was now running things. Her name was Adrian. And and I'm sure that, and I've gotten in a lot of trouble lately with some of these people because I guess they feel like I'm attacking them, and I'm not. I'm literally seeing them. I'm touching the small of their back when I say these words. And for them to be offended by that makes zero sense to me at all because I fucking notice. It's like, why the fuck wouldn't you want someone to notice? But you'll see this in your family. You'll see this, you'll see this in people that you love. And you can still love them. You can still have a relationship with them. But you really do understand that you're dealing with different agencies that come up. And the part of Adrian that was sabotaging herself later was like looking at the most negative thing that she could find in the room and bringing it out, and not necessarily trying or consciously being accusatory, but it having this really accusatory energy because you're comparing it to the energy that just came out before, the reptile. You can't help that. We set rapport with people. And there are people in your life that will give you completely different polar opposites in 7 minutes. And it's not wrong. It's not even fair to say that's not who they are. That is who they are. You are your ancestors all combined, and every splintering that occurs, every different module, every different aspect of yourself is going to be competing for agency of your tongue. The captain of your tongue is going to be an agent that's able to hold authority over that lighthouse for a certain amount of time, and another agency will come and take that over and say, we're in charge of the lighthouse now. And when I say that these people are haunted, I mean all of us are haunted. And I mean that I'm just really happy that I can see that, because you start to understand that there are different agencies on board. And there's always agencies on board. My reptile, I'm haunted by my reptile. I'm haunted by my neocortex. Who is it to say one is more than the other? The serotonin that's secreted from my intestines is its own entity. The largest eye in the world is your intestine. It literally digests things, and it takes 8 years for the light, or 8 days, sorry, for the light to reach it. When food is digested into your intestine, the Brussels sprout will take 8 days for you to fully see what the Brussels sprout looked like in the eye of your intestine. How could you not be haunted by something like that? How could you think that you could even understand something like that when you see something in half a second and you make up your entire mind about everything that's there? And that's what your neocortex is doing. Don't fucking tell me that's who you are. That's an agency that occupies your mind. All of us are haunted. And it's the most beautiful thing in the world. All of my muse, all of my words, all of my books come from hauntings. And some of those hauntings are my grandfather. Some of those hauntings are authors that have reached me. Some of those are people that I used to consider my dear friend, that used to confide in me and now hate me and insist that I'm committing a fraud. You're haunted by all of these. Don't you dare try and take that away from yourself. You're permeable. You're writable. You're paper. You're rice paper. And these agencies and these entities and other people's agencies and other people's entities have written on your paper, and they made you who you are. Yeah, cemeteries are calm. They are. It's amazing. Yeah, it's jarring when you're attacked by someone you thought was a friend, and you get the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde experience, so common, so little integration often. The reason why it's jarring is not because of them. I mean, so sure, all the reptile stuff we talked about is legit, but I'm saying that you, as a sovereign entity, are able to not have that be jarring. And the way that you would not have that be jarring is that you need to imagine that you have plasma tentacles, and these tentacles are the expectations that you have about their behavior. You're expecting them to behave in a certain way. And what hurts is when your expectations, because you've associated with a hypothetical, think about it, your expectation is a hypothetical that you've associated with in the future. So your plasma is invested in that result. And when they do not come forward with that result, you lose that investment, and that's what hurts. They don't actually hurt you. Your expectations over their behavior hurts you, and you can change your relationship to them because you can have friends that you do not have to trust. I know this sounds backwards. I know it. But if you look at trust as kind of a bullshit perk that only made people be friends anyway because they thought that they could gain your trust, you start to realize trust should not be any part of a friendship. Never. Do you know who you should trust? If you're a minor, you should trust your parents. If you're a parent, you should trust your partner. But if you're a friend, you shouldn't trust your friends. You should expect dilation from your friends. You should express thought. You should expect authenticity, but you shouldn't expect it, but you should want those things. The Four Agreements is a good book. Yeah, it is. Let me see if I can remember them. Actually, the don't take it personally kind of always bothered me. But that's because most of the people that have sonar are obliterated when they're young by said don't take it personally. And all the sonar comes empathically, personally. All of that data comes personally. But it is a good book. It's got some good rules there. It really is removing those expectations. It doesn't call you an emotional pedophile. You have to read my book for that. I can't even trust my own brother. Just figured I had trust issues. Yeah, I can't trust my own brother. But my brother's been teaching me that from a very young age. If anything, I can love my brother, but I should never trust him. And the only way I could love my brother is to not trust him. And you know what this is just like? It's just like a relationship with like I was going to say raccoon, because it is. But my brother's a little bit meaner than a raccoon, or has the potential to hurt me more than a raccoon because I was trusting him. You can love your parents and not trust them once you're an adult. In fact, once you become an adult, you should do that. You should do that. Because it's really hard not to be a pedophile on your own parents when you're expecting that they will always be more awoke or conscious than you, and they won't be. You will always be more awoke and conscious than they are. If they did their job right, you will. Right? So we can't even get mad at our parents if we're more conscious than they are, because they literally handed us the ball, gave us all the conditions to make it, to go even further, right? You should be proud of your parents if they are not nearly as awake as you are. You should be proud of them for that. James, I have learned to recalibrate my expectations less painfully, but we still seem to crave true friendship. Yeah, here's the thing. I'm not saying you can't have true friendship. Aristotle said we'd be lucky to find two good friends in life. I think that you can find friendship more in how you relate to wildlife. If you understand that humans are wildlife, you're gonna have so many friends. Because not once are you going to let, like, there are cougars out there. Don't let them in your bed, but go hang out with them. Go run with them, right? Watch them hunt. Watch them try and hunt you, right? Find how sustainable you are. Don't let them in your bed. All of these animals, if you look at every single person in your life, trying to imagine the animal archetype that they're embracing, you will find a much deeper relationship. Why? Because you are relating to parts of them that they don't relate to themselves. You are relating to the lion in them, or the hyena in them, or the giraffe in them. That's why I get so mad at hyena. Why? Because they're just everywhere. They're everywhere. There's so many hyena here. I'm literally titled the stream Baalgenics, Gifts of Baalgenics. Because there's so many hyena. And I'm not for eradicating all hyena. There's just so many. There's so much shit over all of the walls. Everything is just covered in hyena shit. And it does, if anything challenges me, it's that. And it's my own vitriol, isn't it? I don't want to get rid of the hyena. I don't even want to. I've been finding and carving a place that doesn't have nearly as many hyena. And you know why I don't have as hyena? Because the hyena are calling me Luciferian now. Which means I've developed a way to keep them away, to keep them at bay, and I don't have to do much. All I have to do is be authentic, and the hyenas stay away. That's a pretty cool trick. I'm gonna say coyote. I think coyote is much closer to dog. Hyena literally grow an external vagina that drags the ground. Another hyena thinks it's a penis. And all they do is ridicule each other and tear each other apart and call that camaraderie. Coyotes just hunt together. They don't butt-fuck each other and talk about how evil everyone else is, but they are. It's a very special kind of creature, that hyena. And it probably burns the most because I came from there. Right? Yeah, hyenas can change sex according to the pack's needs. Oh. Yeah. I have had to remove my expectations. Most of the people I've considered friends have been hyenas. And you know what showed me that? Corona. Corona showed me that. That's what showed me. And I'll like hyenas again. As soon as I remove my expectations and my associations with them, I can appreciate them. Hyenataria. Yeah. Yeah. But, the more I engage in that kind of ridicule, the more I'm one of them. So I just try and not. It's cool. It's not even have to try. It's we're building what we're building, and 5.5 is going to be pretty great. Just hasn't made it to 16 or 30. Yeah, I think until people understand cleavage more, which it just is. It's in my latest book, Arc of Baphomet. But the process of cleavage, I know we think about cleavage as like the beautiful skin fold and breast, but cleavage is a different kind of mitosis. It's where the zygote splits inside of itself. It doesn't do it externally. It takes its internals and splits it in two, and then in two, and then in two, and then in two. And in the process of 4, you form a chimeric zodiac. Yeah, and you never know when you're looking at cleavage, is that breast or butt, right? That's the beauty of cleavage. Yeah, so your body, Arc of Baphomet, is the placenta, is the cleaved part of you, and then the baby. So the baby is the Osiris, and the placenta is the Eye of Horus. This is all in Egypt. It's all documented. They used to carry a placenta around on a pole in Egypt, symbolic of the Eye of Horus. You can, it's in that book, Ark of Baphomet. I hope you guys will read that book. I worked hard on it. It's a lot of work. That book was going to come out, and then Crow was going to interview me for it. And then, for whatever reason, wrote, wait a minute. Holy shit. It just hit me. I finished that book. We were going to do an interview with Crow on 11/11. We show up for the interview, and Rose isn't there. This just hit me. I think there's a lot more to the vitriol than I know. I'll just say that. And I think that triangle relationship between her and Crow and Jason that I was engaging in is more of a problem than we see. And that maybe the reason why Rose wasn't there is precisely because she knew that if I would have been in the room with all of them, I would have said no. I would have said, guys, we have to fix this triangle. I bet you that's why. I bet you that's why. When does it split from cells into placenta and baby? At which point so confused? Okay, so the zygote is the single cell organism that's been, so the sperm, the snake only has one gene pair. The egg, the Eden, only has another gene pair. It's the only cells in your body that only have a single gene pair like that, right? Or the eggs and the sperm. It's the only ones. That's what makes them so attracted to each other. So the sperm comes into Eden, it smears the chimera, puts the chimera gates on the gates of Eden. The flaming sword is the zinc process that erupts in the zygote when it flashes light. When it flashes light, cleavage begins. The single zygote turns into a 16-chambered single zygote. It's still a single zygote. While that's happening, it's flowing down the fallopian tubes, the great flood of Noah. This is all in the book. Really need to buy my book. Sorry, but you do. It goes down the fallopian tubes. It lands on Ararat. It lands on Allah's lat. Ararat, Allah's lat. Lat is phallus. It lands on the side of Ararat. The zygote does, that's in the process of 16. And for the very first time, the Titans build the gates around the living cell. And for the very first time, they open the plumbing. The Titans created the plumbing inside the zygote. And through osmosis, they open the gates. And for the very first time, the zygote pulls liquid, water, flood, from the outside world in. And at this time, it's laying on the uterine wall. And when it pulls the water in, that begins the process of actual mitosis, and the placenta begins because it plants itself into the wall of the fallopian tube. So, I mean, not the fallopian tube, but of the wall of the uterus. On the uterus, the placenta is growing from where it's touching itself, from where the water's coming in, right? That's creating that growth. So the placenta is happening more outside of the central gates of the Titan, of the zygote, and that's life. Now, once mitosis starts, that's when instead of cleavage, the cells actually split, and you're no longer a single cell organism. Now you have 2 cells. Now you have 3 cells. Now you have 4 cells. The Elohim is created inside the zygote. When you read Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning, they're talking about you in the zygote. That the Hebrew Bereshit bara Elohim is in beginning, there is Elohim, which means that your zygote, the single cell entity that gets inserted from the serpent who delivers the apple, that converges into a plurality, 16 cells. That's the cleavage, and that is the essence of what Elohim means. The Elohim dictates everything, and the Elohim says, all we have is darkness. There is no form, there is only void. Therefore, we must make organs. And so the zygote starts to generate organs. It makes an eye so it can see. It makes a cell so it can eat, so it can grow, so it can split, so it can advance. It creates its senses in the 7-day process. It's all outlined in the book. You'll also see this in a very dramatic way at the live show, but you got to buy a ticket to that. By the way, I don't think I'm going to be filming that show. I don't think that I'm going to be releasing the video to that live show. I've been really rethinking that, and I think it changes the magic of it. If I can convince more people to, if my show is good enough and I can find another facility in another place, meaning if I can convince someone else to rent me a space to have a show, I will do a show there too. So I'd rather take it on the road, but the show is something you're going to just have to experience live, kind of like this show. It's what you got to do. Hey, the internet's working great, so I'm really happy about that. Jambi, your son is the flesh. Broken hymen of your highness. Sometimes the umbilical cord inserts itself in the placenta in a very precarious way. It's called a velamentous insertion. Seen it in a handful of times, says Green Mountain Girl. Yeah, well above. Prune my lips. Green Mountain Girl knows what she's talking about. Not that she was pruning, but she knows more than me. I recall the flash when I could see my son and I thought it was external. Yeah, that flash is zinc. It's actually zinc. You can see it on a microscope. The entire process of being banished, think about it. Adam and Eve were Aedom. A-E, remember the ligature of A-E? Aedom was Adam and Eve before they were split, before the cleave. This is why there's two Adams in the Bible. There's the unisex Adam, and then there's the androgynous Adam, or the hermaphroditic Adam, and then there's the Adam that's sexed. The very first time that Adam is referred to as a plural proper name is when he has sex, when he gives birth to Canaan. That's the only time that the word Adam is used as a proper name. Did you know that? You didn't if you didn't read my book. I'm telling you, you need to read this book. I put a lot of fucking time into it. Read the book. But it shows you the two different Adams, and that the Adam before Adam was Aedom, was a hermaphroditic creature. And that's why the cleaving causes so much weird gender disparity. One of the reasons why you feel shame when you're naked is because you're literally missing parts from what you used to remember. This missing is not means you're broken. It means you were cleaved. It means you made decisions in order to crucify yourself on the trees of morality and mortality. Morality and mortality. Two different trees. And you were crucified on those, on the cross of life itself. And your cells literally crucify you by growing in this shape. And this shape exposes you to the vitriol of the environment, where you catch the heat and the shadows of the light of truth, and you grow and grow and grow. And you only do this because someone promised you that you would get to die. You wouldn't have come here if you couldn't have. You needed that. When you start to understand how these core wounds go all the way back to our beginning, we start to understand why we have so many weird things around sex, around dress, around gender, and you start to really, really, really see yourself for the very first time. Most of us have never considered that the placenta died so that we could be born. At the moment you were born, you had a secret brother, Horus, from the other side. The eye of Horus is always far away, because the eye of Horus is something you will never see yourself, because it died so you could be born. And most of us don't even know that that happened. And when you read my book, you found out that Adam and Eve were actually from Egypt. Egypt. That inside Luxor, they used to worship Adam and Eve on a barge. They'd carry this barge up and down the Nile. And they honored Horus. They honored every part. And that the Nile itself is a giant placenta that touches the Mediterranean with an umbilical that goes all the way down to Karnak. And what is Karnak? The gate, the land of the gates of kings, where kings enter a new gate. What did I just tell you happened? You've entered a new gate. This eugenics program is a Karnak. It's a birth of consciousness. In the eye of Horus, the you that used to be died so you could get here. Yeah, the placenta is a fascinating thing. They used to, in Egypt, they used to pull the placenta out once a year. And this priest would be like, oh, God, the smell. But he'd pull it out. Many will bury the placenta. In fact, the Valley of the Gates of Kings on the west bank of Luxor, on the west bank of the Nile, in the mountains. There's a mountain where the mountain looks like a Horn Mountain, has the Valley of the Gate of Kings, and that place was where placenta were buried. It's the resting place of your Ka, of the root of your lotus. But you have to read my book. It's all in the book. It's a beautiful story. You'd enjoy it. And we could talk about it more. I need more of you guys to get that book. There you go. You need to buy a book from James, says Shipmoth. You're right. So you could buy that on Amazon, Arc of Baphomet, or on Audible, or you could buy that on JTrue. I'm asking that because, man, I've spent so much money this month. Oh my gosh. It's crazy how much money I've spent. And so yeah, if you want to buy a book, I would love to send you one. I got them right here. All right, so I am stoked that the internet is stable now. I'm going to do a show for you guys Friday. Placenta was in those bags. There you go, Teresa Berger. Is the new book a good place to start, or is there... I think you could start with this new book, Elijah. I think you could. It is my 6th book, but I don't think that you need to read the rest to start there. I think you could. I think it'd be great. Hasn't buffered once. Great. That's great to hear. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. Thank you. So yeah, I feel like maybe I'm running out of things to say. So I know a lot of people do longer streams, but I was kind of surprised that it worked this long. I think the birth certificate is something to do with the afterbirth. Could be. They're all worth buying. Thank you, Shiva. AOB's very strange alone book compared to others. Very standalone book. Yes, thank you. No, it's also a very strange book. I think you're going to find it kind of weird book. I just finished both your Aztec lives. Been following you for a while. First question: why would someone know that after 52 years of tracking Venus would lead to some understanding? So you're asking like why is Saturn return a thing, right? Because some people know about Saturn return, and then some people know about Venus return. I think anytime you're going to find any kind of cyclical thing that starts over, even seasons, you're just going to naturally have some magic that collects around it, right? Is like coming full circle. It's just going to make you think about those things. It buffered twice for me. Okay. I unexpectedly caught you today. I'm glad you did, Teresa. Good to see you. It's been a while. Let me see. Would lead to some understanding. Yeah, I think being here will always lead to understanding, I guess, Vanessa. If you've been here long enough, you will. So if you reflect, it will. Best Apocalypse Ever is a lovely tapas. Thank you. It is a tapas. It's meant to be that way. It's very perfect word for it. Thank you. Yeah, Best Apocalypse Ever. That's another book. I'm actually reading Spell of Six Dragons this morning for my audiobook recording, so that'll be up soon, which is more about like a personal... can I interview you? Sure, you can interview Vanessa. James@jtrue.com. You just email me. I'm trying to read this today. I'm trying to get the right thing. I'm gonna read this to you, and if we have 152 people here, I'm gonna shut off the stream if I finish this paragraph and there are less than 152 people. This is page 2 of Spell of Six Dragons. A plan was concocted, reviewed and rubber-stamped by all parties. My brother would light and I would toss. It was a firecracker called a ladyfinger. It looked like a tiny blood-red cigarette. The safety meeting was over and the camera was rolling. The magnifying glass focused its plasma star on the tip of the wick string. Once both were held still long enough, there came a sizzling sputter and then a spark. I was holding lit doom between my thumb and index finger, but I could not let go. This tiny, crackling sparkler had paralyzed me like some terrible Medusa. I was mesmerized by the monument of my situation. Clearly, I had forgotten which button to push in my brain to release my pincers. I was screaming at the psychotic finger monsters at the end of my palm to let go. I knew the end was coming, so my mind prepared its final testament. I left all of my belongings to the Tooth Fairy. I had done business with him before, and we could cash in on all my bones. My folks would need that money to cover up the shameful circumstance of my passing. Here lies little Jimmy, too afraid to unfurl his fingers. He was killed by his own ladyfinger. Oh, I lost 6 of you in the reading of that book. It was a paragraph. Couldn't even stand a paragraph. You guys have a great day. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in Airship tonight if you're coming tonight. And I have the dichotomy of an indecisive seeing. I not knowing which split an electron through. That's interesting. Haha, damn it. Kurt Cobain loved it. Don't trust these numbers. That book literally made me... Oh, that book literally made me cry. Thank you, Amanda. Anyway. Order for... Yes, I do send little feathers if you order my book. I think it does refer to... Wait, what is Gnome saying? I think it does refer to psychic, but I don't feel understand always, and it probably changes the context, what it even means with folks like JT, and I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. We missed Time Magic, by the way, so hopefully Sark and I'll be doing that this weekend. I was really bummed about that. Where's my ka? Your ka is find your placenta. And if you can't find your placenta, the Eye of Horus is always watching you. Always. The fact that you even remember that, their placenta, is really all it takes to tap into the Eye of Horus. Gnome says he was talking about the term magic. Yeah, Sark and I we talk a lot about magic. What is magic? I would think it's probably psychic ectoplasm that's charged with will or intent. And that will or intent can look like a living entity, like a demon, but it depends on the type of will and intent or ectoplasm that's been charged. Ectoplasm could be simple vector, like a will. It can be a complex vector, like an algorithm that runs like an if-then statement, right? If someone doesn't agree, then attack psychically with guilt. That's a big one that we use a lot. So all of these are magic, but also physicality is magic too. If you can jack your car up long enough to change your own tire, I think that's also magic. Anything that requires the manipulation of the environment, I think, would fit into the category of magic. That's why it's been so important that everyone has dismissed magic from every single place, is precisely because it's found in every single place, if that makes sense. So, anyway, magic, just a clump of cells. There you go, Sark. Clump of intent. You guys have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time. Thanks for surviving the one paragraph of my book. For the 6 of you that left, go fuck yourself. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Thank you, James. Have a great day, everyone. Yeah, you guys too.